IELTS Test Preparation 2020. In this video, I'm going to share with you ideas about how you can prepare for your IELTS test. I'd like to start off by mentioning that I've got a free PDF for you. It's over 140 pages long, and if you'd like to get that PDF to help you to prepare for your IELTS test, please look at the description below. I've got a link there so that you can download your free 140 page test preparation book for 2020. I've been an examiner and an IELTS tutor for over 10 years, and in this book I've prepared some useful information that will help you to be successful in your test in 2020. Now, in terms of what's in there, I've got skills to help you pass all 4 parts of the IELTS test: reading, writing, listening and speaking. I've also got some test taking tips and techniques to help you to prepare for your test and to know what to do when you take your test. A lot of students love model answers, so I've got some model answers to some of the past speaking questions for you in there. I've also got a whole lot of model answers to help you in the writing test, to help you with your essay writing, to help you with your report writing if you're taking an academic test, and to help you with your letter writing if you're taking the IELTS general test. There's also lots of vocabulary to help you to build your vocabulary and to have higher level language in order to impress the examiner in your speaking and writing test. As well as this, there are loads of resources and links to different parts of my website and other resources to help you with taking your test. Now I'd like to move on to each of the 4 parts of the test and just give you some quick ideas about what I think you should be doing to prepare for your IELTS test. This is super quick, super focused ideas and suggestions for preparing for your test. I'm assuming here that you may only have a month or even just a few days, so these are super quick ideas that you can work on for all 4 parts of your test. Let's start with the speaking test, and I've got 7 main ideas to share with you about how you can prepare for your IELTS speaking test. So my first suggestion is that you have a look at some of the common speaking topics and some model answers. What you want to do is get familiar with the test, to have an understanding of what kinds of questions get asked in all 3 parts of the test, and also how you should answer them. Another thing that I strongly urge you to do is to have a look at the current questions in the test that we know about. I've got a link below to this on my website. It's very important that you do this for a number of reasons. One, it can help avoid a nasty surprise in the test of getting a question that you've just never thought about before, and remember, you don't get any time to prepare unless it's part 2 of the test, when you get 1 minute to prepare your answer. But 1 minute's not going to be a lot if you get a question that you just find really awkward and difficult. So it can take away some of this risk, and this is because there's a chance that some of the current questions that we know about from the test will be asked in your test. So if you have a look at the current pool of questions that we know about, it's going to reduce the risk of a nasty surprise. Also, if you've had a look at some of the questions before your test, if you get a question in your test that you've already seen, that you've already thought about, this is going to help you greatly. Now, it's very early on in 2020, so we don't have a very thorough idea of what questions are in the test, but I am updating this regularly on my website. There's a link below in the description so that you can see these latest questions that we know about, and I also suggest you go back and have a look at some of the 2019 questions. This is because a lot of these questions are still in the test. So essentially, in order to be prepared well for your test, look at the current questions. Look at the questions we know about for this year. Look at the questions from last year. Okay, so that you're less likely to get a nasty surprise, and so that you can perform really well if you get a question that you've had before. Secondly, I suggest that you have a look at my speaking videos on YouTube. I'll put a playlist at the very end of this video, and so you can watch those videos and get some tips and techniques and vocabulary that will help you in your speaking test. Speaking of vocabulary, I highly recommend that you learn some idiomatic expressions, because these are extremely important for getting to band 7 and above on your speaking test. I have a video dedicated to idiomatic expressions, and as well as this, in order to impress the examiner, I also recommend learning some adjectives for part 2 of the test, especially adjectives about people, places and things, and I have a video dedicated to this as well. If you're looking for more help beyond this, I do offer a mock speaking test, and this can help you to be even more familiar with the test, and I can also give you feedback on your performance, give you a band score, and also give you suggestions about what it is you can do to get from the current level you're at to the score that you need to get in your test to pass the test and move on with the next stage of your life. As well as a free PDF giving you model answers and suggestions for your speaking test, I've also written an IELTS speaking book, and it's published on Amazon, and it's also available on my website, so you're welcome to check that out if you feel that you need a lot of in-depth instruction about the test, if you've got a long time to prepare, or if there's a big gap between where you are now and where you need to be, then you might find purchasing a book might be a useful way to prepare for your IELTS speaking test. Now, moving on to the writing test, and most people find that this is the hardest part of their test, and on average, if we look at all the candidates' results, band scores are about half a point lower, half a band score lower for the writing test than other parts of the test. So often this can be kind of like the Achilles heel when candidates take the test. Achilles heel's like the main weakness when you take your test. So a lot of students struggling with writing. Let's see some ideas about what it is that you can do to prepare before you take your test. Okay, it's important that you're well prepared for your test. If you just go into the test room without preparation, you shouldn't expect a high score, even if you're a native speaker. A lot of native speakers only score around 7 in the test. How can this be? They're native speakers. Well, they may have great vocabulary and grammar, but they don't know what it is that the examiner is looking for in the test, and this is why even a native speaker will likely get a low score, say 7 out of 9, if they take an IELTS writing test. Okay, so let me give you a few suggestions for your writing test. There'll be links to all these things that I'm talking about below in the description for this video, and I've also got a page set up on my website, so if you find it easier you could also go over to the website. But let me let you know what I think you should be working on to prepare for your writing test, to be prepared to succeed in your IELTS test. Okay, so the first really important thing is to be able to read the task instructions and analyze or work out what it is exactly that you've got to do. Okay, because this accounts for at least 25% of your score. In part 2 of the test, you are given the score of 25%. 25% of your score is for task response. For task 1, it's 25% for task achievement. So a quarter of the test is responding to the instructions. And a lot of candidates do this very poorly. And it doesn't make sense to be throwing away a quarter of your marks. And also, this is not really about your level of English. It's not about vocabulary and grammar. It's not about how much time you've spent learning English. It's about understanding what the examiner wants and then responding to it. Okay, so incredibly important that you understand this. I have a video dedicated to it. I've got some information in my website about how you can do this for both task 1 and task 2 of your test. And then step 2, you want to learn how to plan your writing. Before you start writing, you should make a plan. If you've ever had English teachers, they always emphasize this. Why? Why do the teachers always say it? Because it's important. Now, I've been an invigilator in tests, and I've noticed that over 90% of the candidates do not make any sort of plan. They just start writing. I find this incredibly frustrating. I've seen some of my own students in the test and I've watched them and no plan. We've talked about it in class. They go to their test, no plan. So I've asked them, why are you not making a plan? And the common answer that I get is, oh, I was worried I didn't have it. Oh, I was worried I wouldn't have enough time. Wouldn't have enough time. It saves you time. Planning will save you time in your test. Trust me, I've been doing this for a long time. I've marked over 10,000 tasks. I know, maybe you know better. Up to you. I'm going to tell you that making a plan will save you time, and not only that, it'll make sure that your task achievement, task response is solid. It's incredibly important to make a plan, and you need to learn how to do it. And again, I've got videos, I've got a page on my website devoted to planning. Next, it's really important that you understand the different types of tasks that you're going to be asked to write in your test. If you're taking the general test, you need to know about the different types of letters you might have to write. If it's academic test, you need to know about the different types of reports that you're asked to write. Bar charts, pie graphs, maps, changes over time. These are all important things. And then with the essays, it's incredibly important that you learn the different types of essays. I've broken these down into 3 main types of essays. I've got videos about this. One of my goals for 2020 is to take these 3 types and then break these 3 types into more types. So essentially that we have types of types. So for instance, under opinion essays, we've got essays that just ask for your opinion. We've got essays that ask, do you agree or disagree? We've got task instructions that ask us, do the advantages of this outweigh the disadvantages? So we've got different types or flavors of these essays, and we need to understand these. Okay, why? Because each type of essay requires a different response, requires a different structure if you want a high score. So you need to learn this. Even you're a native speaker, you need to learn about the different types of tasks in your test, how to plan them, how to write them. Okay, so that's part of your preparation. You're not ready for your test unless you know this. Oh, and again, it'll save you time if you know this, because when you get your test paper, instead of having to sit there and think, what sort of task is this and how on earth should I structure it, you're already going to know, because you'll be familiar with this already. You'll think, okay, it's an opinion essay, so I need to structure it this way. I need to make sure I do these kinds of things. Important to know this before you take your test. Another thing that I strongly suggest you do is to read lots of model answers, so that you're prepared for your writing test, so that you have an idea of what the examiner is looking for. Okay. Not only this, by looking at model answers, it can help you get ideas, because a lot of the topics kind of get repeated. There might be slight nuances or subtle differences between them, but a lot of the time they're quite similar. So if you've looked at model answers, this will help you greatly. It will help you to know how to structure the task, how to respond to it, And you might even pick up some useful vocabulary and sentence structures along the way. So do that. It's really important. Read lots of model answers. You're also going to want to work on some topic-specific vocabulary. Some of the common essay topics, let's see, what have we got? Education, technology, society, a lot of issues to do with youths or maybe seniors, like aging society, so societal type questions. A lot of questions related to health. So for instance, if we're talking about vocabulary for education, we could learn words like curriculum, which is like a plan for everything that a student's going to learn, or we could have words like literacy, which is the ability to read and write, or illiteracy, the inability to read or write. Okay, so learning some topic-specific vocabulary, incredibly useful to give your score a bit of a boost for the writing, especially essays, and it'll help you in the speaking test as well. So you're kind of like killing two birds with one stone. I think another incredibly important part of your preparation for the writing test is to actually do some writing. And then if you can, get somebody to assess your writing, someone who's experienced, such as myself. It'll cost you a little bit of money, but it's better than wasting money for a failed test, and also the time and stress of not passing your test. So I strongly recommend just send me a couple of tasks and get them assessed so that you can know whether you're on track to get the score that you need, and also get some valuable feedback that will help you in your test. And then finally, I've got ebooks and printed books for the writing test. I've got one book that combines the task 1 and task 2, and then I've got task 1 and 2 separately. So I strongly recommend those books if you're a great distance from the score you need, and if you've got at least a month or so to prepare. If you've only got a day to prepare, well, that's not going to be worth it. If you didn't have long to prepare, just download my free ebook and just go through some of the model answers. Look at the different types of tasks, see how I respond to them. Alright, now the listening test. How should you prepare for the listening test? Well, I've got a few suggestions for you here too. The first suggestion is that you learn some skills for your listening test. Okay, and what I do is I divide these skills into 3 areas. The first one is your pre-listening skills. This involves what you should be doing before the recording starts in your test. You're given some time to look at the questions in advance. Before the recording starts, what should you do? How should you spend this time? I've got instructions for you about this on my website. You can have a look at those. I haven't really made a lot of videos yet about the listening test. Maybe that's something I'm going to do in 2020. We'll see how it goes. I'm mostly focused on speaking and writing, I guess, because my experience as an examiner really comes to value in these areas. Okay, but number 1 is some listening skills for before the recording starts, during the recording. What should you be doing? What should you be paying attention to the most? Okay. But basically, the pre-listening skills tell you what sort of information to be listening out for, and then you want to build some skills when the recording's actually playing so that you can catch the answers, so that you can get the information that you need. You shouldn't be paying like 100% attention to every word in the listening test. What you should be doing is listening out for signals that the answer's coming, then pay extra attention and catch the answer. Alright, and then also there's a few things that you should be doing after the recording. You should be filling in any answers that you missed. If you couldn't pick up an answer, have a guess, especially it's multiple choice. There's no penalty for guessing. The worst thing to do in a multi-choice is leave it blank. Again, incredibly annoyed when I've marked students' papers for the listening test or the reading test and they've just put nothing there and it's multiple choice. Are you mad? You may as well have a guess. because you might get lucky. Okay, after these skills, after working on and understanding these skills, it's time to start practicing the skills. And you want to do lots and lots of listening practice tests. Okay, so you want to do lots of practice tests, and the best source of practice tests are the Cambridge books of past test papers. Why are they the best? Because they're the most accurate representation of what you're likely to get in your test. The future tests are going to be very similar to the past tests. There are a couple of very minor subtle differences in 2020. It's mostly due to the wording of the test rather than anything else, so I'm not going to go into any detail on those. A couple of other points about doing past test papers too. Make sure you check your answers and make sure that you learn from your mistakes. Mistakes are like gold or golden opportunities for learning. It's great if you got the right answer, but when you don't, try and have a look at what it is that caused you to get the wrong answer so that you can learn from this. The back of the Cambridge books has transcripts, written versions of what the person's saying. So look at those and see what is it that you missed. Why could you not get the right answer? Why did you choose the wrong answer? Very, very important. Also, I do have a listening ebook and printed versions available of my listening book. Links below to those if you feel that just doing practice tests is not enough and you want to learn more about the kind of skills and techniques and the different types of questions that you might get on your test and how you should be I guess how you should be using the skills for the different types of questions that you're likely to get in your test. Moving on to the reading test, and again my main sort of starting point, my main suggestion at the beginning of your preparation is that you work on some of the skills that you're going to need during your reading test. Alright, so skill number one is to learn how to skim an article, to learn how to quickly read an article, get the main information, and also learn the structure of the article. This is really, really important because when it comes to finding answers, you don't want to have to look all the way through your article. You want to know roughly where the information should be. Now, some common ways to structure articles are by time, past, present, future, or maybe by problem, cause, solution. So if you can roughly know how an article is structured, it's going to help you to know where to look for information or an answer. So if the answer is about a solution, then you know this is coming towards the end in a kind of problem, cause, solution style article. You're also going to want to learn how to scan, which is to quickly look through information and catch the information you need. So that's going to be important because when you read your article, you want to be able to look through quickly and find keywords. If it's about, let's say, I don't know, global warming and carbon emissions, and something about carbon emissions, you want to be able to quickly scan and find carbon emissions, or maybe CO2 or something similar like this. As with the other parts of the test, you also want to learn about the different types of questions that you get in your test and to practice the different types of questions. For instance, a lot of people find the kind of true, false, not given questions difficult. So if you do practice question types, if you learn skills, if you find a particular question type is problematic, that you score really lowly on it, then you want to practice that question type and get better at it. I'm a big fan of working on your weaknesses and try and work out why it's weak. What is it that you're missing? The sort of true, false, not given, it's a lot about logic, and there's almost always also some kind of IELTS logic, and you can start to understand the IELTS logic with true, false, not given questions by doing lots of practice. And that sort of brings me on to my next point. You want to do lots and lots of practice tests, just like I said with the listening. And again, the best source is the Cambridge books of past test papers. We're up to book 14. Book 15 is going to come out in June. I'll give you an update when that happens. And again, do these practice tests and learn from your mistakes. If you're doing true, false, not given, and you put true but it's not given, try and work out why. What is it that went wrong? I'll give you a sort of a suggestion. Maybe the text says many people, but the answer says most people. Now, many and most are not synonyms. Many can mean most. Many people have a smartphone. That's kind of true, isn't it? And that would be sort of most as well, I guess. But we can also say these days many people are unemployed. But it doesn't mean most people are unemployed, right? So you can see that many has quite a big range. It could be like sort of 5-10% in the case of unemployment, or in the case of smartphones, it could be, I don't know what it is now, maybe 95%, maybe even higher. So it can mean most, but it doesn't always mean most. So in that case, not given. We can't say it's true, we can't say it's not true, so it's not given. If the text says many people, but the question says most people, not given. Alright, and again, I have sort of got my collective wisdom together and created an ebook, and also it's published as well, published through Amazon, available in most countries. So again, if you've got a lot of time, or if you've got a big distance between where you are now and where you need to be, you might find it valuable to get that book and learn from my wisdom as an IELTS examiner and also as a tutor. Okay, so that's my advice about how you can prepare for your test in 2020. What I suggest you do now is download the ebook. It's a free ebook about preparing for the test in 2020. It'll give you all the links and like a summary of what I've been talking about for the reading, listening, writing and speaking test. It'll summarize all the key points. There's links for all the things that I've been talking about, and there's also the model answers for the speaking and writing test. So download that. I've also got a link to that and also some other things in the description below, but especially get that ebook because that's got kind of a summary of all the information that you need.